Yeah.
Alright, what's going on YouTube? My name is Marvin Carter, and thank you for tuning in to Doesn't Make Sense once again. Today's lesson is going to be based on the question I was asked: how were asset classes created? Let's go ahead and answer that. Alright, assets are securities, and then those securities are grouped together based on their similarity of appreciation value, and therefore that's what creates the asset class. Alright, and I'll get into the 5 types of asset class for you again: commodities, equities, fixed income, real estate, and cash. And also there is a new asset class emerging called cryptocurrency, but that's for a later video. Right now, I'm going to share a real estate Q&A made by Mr. David Pere, CEO of From Military to Millionaire. Brother, I thank you again for recording that video for me, and I thank you for your time. And right now, I'm going to share that video with you all. Thank you for tuning in.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is David Pere, host of the Military Millionaire Podcast, and Marvin Carter asked me to stop by and answer a few questions for you guys to start out with his YouTube channel, and so that's exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to jump right in. The first question is, how would I know when it's a good time to start real estate investing? And my best answer for you on that is that it could theoretically always be a good time to start real estate investing. The answer is, when are you ready? Whenever you are ready to begin investing in real estate. So if the market's going down, there are strategies that will work. If the market's on its way up, there are a lot more strategies that will work. But if you buy a good property that cash flows in a decent area, in a decent location, a decent part of town, then long term you're going to win. Now, if you're trying to do like flips and active income stuff where you have to buy low, sell high with a renovation short term, there can be some times where that's not beneficial. However, if you're doing long-term buy and hold like I am, it really doesn't matter if you lose a couple $100 here or there, if the market goes down a little bit, because it'll come back up. And long-term, as long as you're in a stable market or a market that's growing, you're going to win. That's it. Always a good time if you know the right strategy. The second question is, what resources are available to use for leverage when real estate investing? And are there any requirements associated? There are a ton. I mean, I can't answer all of these, but there's conventional financing, there's commercial financing from a bank, there's the VA loan, the FHA loan, there's private money lenders, there is other people's money, there is note investing, there's seller finance, there are lease options. I mean, they go on and on and on. So leverage is essentially saying, I want to buy a $100,000 house, but instead of paying $100,000 in cash, I'm going to pay $20,000, and then I will utilize the $80,000 will come from a bank or a private lender or seller financing or whatever. So you're able to utilize that $80,000 to buy the property, and then your tenants pay the debt off, and yada yada yada. Leverage is incredible. It's one of the millions of reasons that I like real estate investing. The third answer is, or question is, do I need a realtor? This is one of those you could probably say that depends, but I highly recommend that you utilize a realtor. So there's actually a reason that I personally will help connect people with realtors all the way across the nation. Like, I vet agents and lenders, and especially for the VA loan, to help service members out, because a good realtor makes a huge difference. I'm fairly familiar with real estate. In fact, I am a licensed realtor, and I still use a real estate agent in every market that I buy in. There's liability reasons, there's negotiation reasons, they're familiar with the area, they're familiar with comps, especially if you're long distance, they're there to go to bat with the inspector or the appraiser or the property manager for you, because they are there and you're not. So agents are just an absolute lifesaver for me, and I absolutely recommend that you go with one. What types of property should I look at? Honestly, that ultimately just depends on you. I mean, I can tell you a million different types of property that you should look at, but it's going to depend on your strategy. So what I usually recommend to people is figure out what your long-term goal is, whether that's long-term buy and hold, you flipping houses to build a business, wholesaling, whatever that long-term goal is, and then figure out what kind of properties will help you get there. So kind of back plan from that. when you're starting out, maybe single family houses. I love the house hack idea, like buying a two unit, like a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, and then living in one unit, renting out the other units. Or right now, I'm living in a 4-bedroom house, and I'm living in one room and renting 2 rooms and using an office as the 4th room. And there's all kinds of ways to do that where people are paying you to cover part of your living expenses, but you're learning how to be a landlord. You're learning how to manage properties. I think that's a great strategy. So when you're starting out, if you can house hack, that's incredible. If you cannot house hack, then I would recommend you look at single family properties. Syndications are great, like a big apartment complexes, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for just starting out. How would I know that I found a good property? This is going to kind of depend on your strategies, but the answer I would give you for this, the short and sweet, is if all of the income will trump all of the expenses, it could be a good property. Now, if you're only making $100 a month and you spent $1 million on that house, I would say that's a terrible investment. But if you're making $100 a month on a $100,000 house, that might be a great investment because you got to look at how much money you put into the deal. So if I put $20,000 in and it pays me $1,200 a year, $100 a month after all expenses, then I'll get my money back in, 16 years, probably a little sooner. And that's great. But if I make $1,200 a month on a property that I spent $1 million on, that's a terrible return. I mean, that's terrible. Now, granted, you wouldn't put $1 million down, you put like $200,000 down, but still not a great deal. So you got to look at that. And then ultimately, so if the property is renting for $1,000 a month and the mortgage is $500 a month, and you want to make sure that the expenses are like $300 a month. Now, normally the expenses, they say, are about half of the rent. So if you had $1,000 a month property, you probably want to keep the mortgage, like principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, under $400. So then that gives $500 for expenses, and then it evens out to $100 a month in your pocket. So as long as it cash flows, you're going to be doing all right. And the final question from Marvin is, what are effective ways to advertise my investment properties? Honestly, I'm a huge advocate of utilizing a property manager, but there are a lot of different ways that you can advertise properties. You can do Craigslist advertisements, especially if you're doing lease options. That seems to be popular. You can put them on Zillow. You can put them on different websites like that, like apartments.com. My friend Lucas Hall helps. He was with Cozy and they moved over. They got bought by apartments.com, so he helps with them. And so there's a lot of different platforms where you can advertise your rental. Property managers are great. Realtors are great because they can help place people as rentals. They might ask, depending on where you're at, there might be some commission involved, but they can do this for you and they're more than willing to help you out. So I think that could be a great option for you as well. And it really just ultimately depends on what you think is the best use of your advertising dollars. You can do it without spending any money through like Craigslist, or you spend a little money and use a property manager, but they're professionals. So it really just kind of depends on your strategy and how hands-on or hands-off you want to be. For me, as a military guy, where I know I'm not going to be around all the time, huge advocate of property managers. Huge. Like, absolutely the number one thing that I recommend for people who are going to be long distance. Now, I have some friends who've done it very, very, very successfully without being, just without being, having a property manager and they're long distance, but it's not something I recommend. That's stress and unnecessary kind of chaos. So anyway, Marvin, some good questions here. Some of them that I could go into way more detail on, but I would need to kind of chase the rabbit, and it depends on who the specific person I'm talking to is. I hope this helped, guys. If you want to get to know, me at all, just Google the Military Millionaire. I'm floating around. I'd love to help you answer any questions I can. Thanks, Marvin, for the opportunity. Have a great day.
Hey, hey, oh.